first of all,
Hello.
I would like to introduce Mel Mills, who's the chair here this afternoon. She's head of social engagement in Better Society Capital. She's a director of Social Enterprise Scotland. She's formerly a trustee of NAVCA and a non-exec director of the Catalyst Fund. But you probably all know her because she was the CEO of Social Enterprise West Midlands. She's a huge advocate for the social economy in the region, and she's a massive resource to us. So thank you for joining us today, Mel. The next person I'd like to introduce is Holger Westphely, who's the CEO of Big Issue Invest, with 2 decades of experience of working in finance and social investment. He co-founded Eastside People, which is something that I was aware of, so very pleased. That was a really great organisation. And you were advising SE organisations on finance and growth, and you did 7 years with CAF Venturesome, so thank you very much. Next person I want to introduce is Tim Landreth, who is the Business Development Manager at Nuneaton Signs. Tim and I go back many years. We've met from time to time in different places where we weren't expecting to see one another, and it's great for me to see him here today. He's previously been a very successful entrepreneur in the private sector, and more recently has shared those skills with the social enterprise sector, especially around the whole agenda of procurement, and he's been a massive resource and brought, I think, some of the behaviours and practices that he learnt running his own business and shared those with social economy organisations. I'd also like to introduce Matt Smith, who I'm a big fan of. He's CEO and social investor at the Key Fund. He's always supported the West Midlands region and social economy organisations. And I think sometimes it's been quite hard, but it's great that you're here today. You've got a background which includes being a fund manager with the National Lottery, and currently you're a non-exec director with Responsible Finance, and separately the Bradwell Community Land Trust. So great experience there, thank you very much. Richard Bickle. Hello, Richard. You're Society Secretary with York Supplies, the Cooperative Press Limited. You've got a background very much in cooperative and community development, which includes, in a previous life, acting CEO of Friends of the Earth and being a director of England Cooperative. So you're very welcome. Nice to see you here. And finally, we've got Preet Mann, who is a senior digital content manager at Good Finance, and you bring experience of insights, research, and thoughtfulness and thought leadership to help charities and social entrepreneurs to navigate the world of social investing. So I'm sure we're going to have lots to ask you over the course of this panel. So thank you, and over to you, Mel.
Lovely to see so many of you here again. I'm ready for lots of questions. That's what I'm expecting. So, let's talk about money, shall we? So, this panel is designed to ideally demystify, support, and most importantly, humanise what investment is. We wanted to make sure that we got a range of people. I always get worried when I refer to anybody as an expert, because then that also includes me. I'm also conscious that this is Preet's week. Two. Yes. So, lots that we can cover. But essentially what we want to do, we want to make sure that we talk in plain language. If we use jargon or words that, don't make sense, please call us out on them and ask us to explain. And we're hopefully going to be able to answer any of the questions that you ask us. We're going to try and cover a range of things from how social investment can support growth, the kind of support that's available, how you use it for transformation, and then where you can get information. So I'm going to ask each one of the panel to do what's happened before, to talk for around 5 minutes. I'm just giving you all the 5 minutes, okay? So we've got plenty of time for questions. And also, what I just wanted to do is to make sure that, as well as those people that provide investment, we've also, most importantly, got a couple of peers here. So people that have taken investment. I think there's something very authentic about being able to ask questions from people where it's not their day job, okay? They're not here to sell it to you, but they are here to share their experience. So I'm going to start with you, Tim. I feel this is very serendipitous this year. That's a nice word, isn't it? I love that word. So just basically, it was a lucky coincidence last year, because I remember bumping into you and thinking, I've known Nuneaton Signs for ages, and we've been at a few events together. And then I also remember talking to Key Fund, and they were saying that they've been chatting to you. And so 2025 has been a pretty busy year for you, hasn't it? So how have you used social investment, and what has that journey been like for your organisation?
It's been fantastic. I'm really glad I came last year. Can I do a little story? So we started in 1982 as a supported workshop set up by Warwickshire County Council. We became a company limited by guarantee in 2010 because basically it was loss making. Since then we've been a business pretty much like any other business. We now employ 90 people, 60 of which have a disability. We have a really clear business plan and growth strategy. And I think one of the things that was highlighted in the previous sessions was that as well as being a social enterprise, you need to have somewhat of a business head, or your board needs to be able to support you to develop your business as a business. We were really lucky last year, so this is the nice story. So 21st of November, I met Tom Bostock, then of Key Fund, and I bought him a sausage roll. We both enjoyed our sausage roll. It achieved everything we wanted it to. And we started talking. About 3 days later, Tom and my MD had a further conversation. So that was, I think, the 29th of November. And on the 2nd of February, we achieved some funding. So it was just 2 months from a kind of a chance encounter. The reason we wanted funding is because we currently work from a factory that we pay a lowish rent on. We pay lowish rates, but we needed to expand in order to do more of the good stuff. The good stuff being serving customers better, more customers, and employing more people with physical and learning disabilities. And what the money has allowed us to do with our clear business plan is basically kit out a new factory that we're renting. We're pretty cash rich. Well, not rich. We're not potentially like other businesses, but we did have enough money in our cash reserves to be able to do it. But the fact that we were able to get £150,000 off Key Fund, which was a mixture of loan and grant, basically made the whole thing a bit sweeter and easier. And it meant that we didn't have to... One month's turnover for us is about £600,000 or £700,000, and that's about the size of our cash reserve. So if we spent all of our money on doing the new build, it would have potentially caused us a little headache cash flow wise. It also allowed us to buy bigger printers. I never thought I'd be excited about printers or things that cut things, but the existing plant has an 8-foot by 4-foot printer and cutter. The new plant has a 10-foot by 5-foot printer and cutter, which opens up new things for us. And it makes things more efficient, because when I was little, you used to print a photograph about that big, and it'd take 10 minutes. Well, we print something that's 10 foot by 5 foot, so about half the size of that wall in about 3 minutes in full colour. Beautiful. I'm not here to sell signs, but if you want any signs, please. So it allowed us to do something bigger and more efficiently, so it was really good. The reason that, apart from me meeting Key Fund, the rate for borrowing was pretty good. The grant was really good. And we're not a grant, we don't go out seeking grants. And I think when I worked with Sarah at ISE, I found it quite difficult visiting certain social enterprises that were, no, I'm sorry to be rude, but too focused on grants. And their business, I'm all about business. You know, you can't be a social enterprise, in my opinion, without being a business. and I used to get a bit frustrated that there wasn't enough trading going on. And I think the trading aspect and modifying your business plan or what you offer to people is really important. Have I done 5 minutes yet?
Got a minute left.
Minute, brilliant, right. So the rates for borrowing were really good, and also Key Fund as a social investor understands social enterprises. So again, assets were talked about earlier. We don't actually own our premises. We rent them. We do have assets in terms of big lumps of equipment, but you should act as a business and work out how best. Do you need a space that you own, or do you need a space that you rent, or can you do something else? And I think the asset thing is interesting, because normal banks definitely want assets. When I had my own business, we borrowed too much money, and they wanted to see a very long-term lease on one of the properties, and one we had a 100-year lease, which is kind of owning it, and the other one we ended up negotiating a 20-year lease, and that allowed them to lend us money because they could see our business was working. But high street banks and social enterprises sometimes don't mix unless you're really clear about what you have, and maybe you do have some assets, but you've got to do a lot of persuading. But Key Fund have a board and a panel and everything else, and our proposition was quite compelling because we had a definite social outcome. So the new factory is allowing us to employ another 6 people immediately for who are disabled or have disabilities. And as I keep saying this, the grant element was particularly helpful.
Okay.
But we don't go for grants, but it just made the whole deal sweeter.
Lovely. So I'm sure this is something Matt's going to now cover and talk a little bit about how that actually works. I was thinking back to this when I was Chief Exec of Social Enterprise West Midlands, which is a long time ago now, I have to say. I often feel quite guilty about lots of things I didn't do, but if there's one thing I did do is to get Key Fund to extend its lending boundary down to the West Mids. So at least that's one thing. So, you know, often social entrepreneurs, this isn't like a bank-based relationship. It's not as like you enter and it says no. So perhaps you just talk to us, Matt, a bit about how you, Key Fund, work in support with organisations to help them on this journey.
Do people mind if I stand? I've got cerebral palsy in this. This chair's killing me. So
by all means, do.
apologies.
However you're
Sorry.
comfortable.
It's not
No.
a key change, so I feel a bit like Westlife, Steffi. It's not.
Anybody
that.
else ready
I'm
to
just
sing?
in pain. So yeah, it's great to be here, and thanks, Tim. You know, very kind words, and actually really inspirational. I guess I'll start by saying I think Nuneaton Signs is a bit unusual for us in reality. It's a mature organisation. It has a relatively strong balance sheet. It has cash reserves, noted the points you made about that, and strong revenue streams. That's not the typical Key Fund client. So I kind of want to make that point, and I think that it's what we tend to see are smaller, newer organisations that are in the early stages of trading. Our average investment is about 60,000, so well under 150,000, and we can go up to 300, but that's really the outlier. So I think that's a really important point to make. All the principles still apply. So you know, we would want to work with people. Sausage rolls. I'm always for sale for a sausage roll. So happy to take pastries in payment. But I think the key to that is actually the relationship, finding a place to meet with people and actually hearing their story and listening to that and trying to build a proposition and a package around where's the organisation at and where do they want to get to. And I think that's a really important part of our work. Kind of going back to Nuneaton Signs, I think it was a very strong proposition for us. The panel really got behind it. I think quite inspired by the stories and the videos. I think there's something there about storytelling and actually the power of that and really getting across the impact that organisations are having that really helped to sell that. And of course, the fact that this was going to create 6 jobs, particularly targeting disabled people, for us was a massive impact. So lots in there that I think were very strong for us. I think in terms of what we do wider than that, the key thing is that most of the propositions that come to us aren't the propositions that we invest in. And when I say that, what I mean is people will apply to us for a certain amount of money for a certain purpose. And actually, we work with them to try and understand. We work through the proposition. I know Holger and other social investors do similar things. So we'll go through cash flows. It isn't a pop it in and it's either right or wrong. Actually, it's pop it in, let's have a conversation, let's try and understand it. So a lot of time, the investment managers spend time going through it, looking at the plans, coming back with questions, trying to understand, also trying to add value. One of the privileges that we have is we've invested in 3,200 organisations in 25 years. So we've seen a lot of ways in which people have set up social enterprises, a lot of the challenges they've had. So we can hopefully add value. The questioning is more about trying to set people up to have the best possible chances of success. It's not about trying to find a way to trip people up. So hopefully we add value there. We do a lot of post-investment support. And of course, then there's the money. The grant we think is really important. It's something that I'm personally very committed to. Most of our investments include an element of grant. The way that we try to think about it is that the grant funds the social impact, the debt funds the business. So you grow the business with the debt and the social impact's covered by the grant. And then by the time the grants run out, hopefully, the trading levels are at such a point that they can then sustain the activity going forward. So I think ourselves, any social investor provides these kinds of services around. And I think the other big thing that most of us do is forbearance, which is actually things don't go to plan. We work with people. It isn't a case of falling back on the security of a building or anything else like that. Our success is the entrepreneur's success. So we work with people to try and find solutions, be patient, maybe send people to other funders if there's better alternatives. So hopefully I've given you a bit of a flavour of the kind of wider support services as well as the money. The money's always important, of course, and is the reason we're here.
Lovely, thank you, Matt. That's great. Okay, so we're going to move on from that first story, and we're going to talk a little bit about community assets and services, Richard. Okay, so actually this came up quite a lot in some of the earlier sessions, and when we get to the questions, we'll definitely go back to assets. But we know that community assets and services are the lifeblood of our high street. So, what happens when an owner wants to retire or exit? Social investment in some forms can be the most often talked about as being the most democratic form of finance when the community are investors. So what I'm really keen to know is, how did you use social investment in the form of community shares and grant crowdfunding and other forms to secure York supplies, and what's next?
Thank you. Can I just have some hands up in the audience? Who's heard of York Supplies? Excellent. So those of you who haven't, we're a traditional hardware and gardening shop. We're based in Kings Heath, just off York Road. We're kind of between Balaclava Road and Waterloo Road. The business moved from York Road itself around the corner in 2005. And what we offer is fantastic plants, all the things you need for gardening. We share skills on how to grow things, on how to mend things. If you need a fork rehandling, if you've got a child's pram that needs a new wheel, if you've got a key that needs cutting, anything that needs sharpening, glass cutting, all of that good stuff we can do. So the York Supplies story started in 1947. The business started as a manufacturing joinery and gradually diversified over the decades. It went through 3 sets of private owners, and a legendary local character called John Jaffa bought the business in 1986, and he ran it for nearly 40 years. When he decided to retire, he put the business on the market, and within a few days, myself, Birgit, who I'm not sure is in the audience, but was here earlier on from, myself, Birgit, and another colleague called Naomi, all independently came up with the idea of some form of community buyout, because we all believed really passionately that the kinds of things that York Supplies do are not only valuable in themselves, but they knit community together and they share skills for sustainability for the future. The only bids that John had for the business, other than ours, were from property developers who wanted a freehold site to put houses on. So that was where we started from. We held some public meetings. We had a facilitated workshop where we worked through both, it's a nice idea, but did we really think it could be a viable business? And we also looked at all the different kind of legal forms, CICs, private companies, cooperatives, community benefit societies, registered charities. And we agreed a scoring on the things that we needed a legal structure to do. And we also took the temperature of the room with about 40 people of how much people would be prepared to put their hand in their own pocket that we could then extrapolate. We chose a community benefit society because it provided an asset lock, which meant that we could access finance, like grant finance and people who want an asset lock legal form. It also meant that we could encourage customers and local people to put their hands in their pockets. And we thought there was a real business benefit from that, because if you feel like your own money is at risk, it's still one member, one vote, whether you put £100 or £20,000 in. But we thought that was the democratic aspect, and the customer engagement was really important. What happened was the average, we raised 350,000. The average investment was £500 a head, and there was actually a nice spread. I think we had one person who put 20,000 in, 2 or 3 who put 10, but the vast majority of people were putting 100, 500 or £1,000 in. And we think that's really important in terms of, social solidarity, actually. We couldn't have, however, the main value in the business was actually the land, and we couldn't have done it if we hadn't also accessed the previous government's community ownership fund. Now, that was a brilliant idea. It was a complete nightmare. It was the worst administered grant programme I've ever been involved in. And I should say, wearing other hats, I sit on the board of the Co-op Loan Fund, so I consider loan applications from people for social businesses. I'm also the Vice President of Central Co-op. So, we're a big retail business. We carry 30, 40, 50 million pounds of debt and have a lot of freehold property. So, I'm used to kind of negotiating deals, funding, sums of money, whatever. And COF were incredibly difficult to deal with. And we have a suspicion that the only reason we got the money was because Andy Street put a good word in for us with Michael Gove. Now, we were very glad for that friendly contact, but frankly, it's outrageous that that was required.
Okay, and unfortunately the Community Ownership Fund isn't currently running, so even though it was a bit of a nightmare, but you've used your community shares. Do you just want to just talk for 1 minute just about, what's the future hold for York Supplies then?
So the business plan we did projected that we'd start paying interest on the shares after 3 years and we'd allow withdrawals after 5. Now, those of you who might have invested in the Birmingham Friends of the Earth share offer that I also managed a few years ago will know that things don't always go to plan, partly down to COVID, and we delayed interest payments there from 3 years to 5 years, although we did allow withdrawals. For York Supplies, if any of you are considering community share offer, my key bit of advice is hold your nerve, because the pattern of investment, I call it a bathtub curve. So you launch it, you get an influx of investors early on, you then go through the middle of the period and you'll have days when you don't get a single investor and you think, shit, we're not going to make it. And then in the last 3 days before the deadline, the money pours in. Now, we were overwhelmed with the rate at which money came in towards the end. We had a disagreement on the board, I hope Birgit doesn't mind me saying this, that she and I had a disagreement that myself and some other board members thought that we'd raised enough money and we should kind of turn the tap off. And Birgit thought, actually, if people are still prepared to put their hands in money in their pockets, we should say thank you very much. Right, and I was wrong. I'm quite happy to sit up here and say Birgit was right and I was wrong, because what we didn't foresee was the building work required in parts of the premises, which, by the way, our friends at Jericho Construction did a fabulous job on. Highly recommend them, not just as a social business, but as any kind of business. That cost a lot more than we anticipated. The trading losses in the first 18 months have been greater than we anticipated. And we would be sleeping a lot more soundly at night right now if we hadn't turned the tap off quite as hard as we did.
Right, so there's some really great lessons. I'm going to explore these a bit more. But let's move on. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Richard. Holger, we're going to move now. we've talked, I mean, there's lots of people in this room that I know really well, and we've spent a long time talking. It's great to hear the CLES statistics, but I know that if you then look more across the whole of England, the Midlands, okay, so West and East Midlands, actually don't access investment as much as some of the other regions do. And I know there's a range of us having sat on various different task force over the last 6 years, and the sort of commitment to double the size of the social economy. Essentially, I think a lot of people would agree it's probably not possible to do that without using investment, whether that is to cash flow contracts, whether it's to buy assets. So I suppose what I'd really keen to sort of explore is just tell us how Big Issue Invest is going to able to help people in this room. We've talked a lot about ambition and opportunity. How do you think social investment can be used?
Okay. First of all, briefly, Big Issue Invest is part of the Big Issue Group, best known for the street magazines. So those who don't know it, we have a few copies on the stand, but please don't take them away. Buy them from your vendor, from your local vendor or near where you work. And as Big Issue Invest, we try to find ways of raising capital, all sorts of capital, and packaging it into a shape that that is useful for the social sector, for the social economy. And we've done that for 20 years. And more recently, we've been engaging with the Combined Authority here in the West Midlands to see what can we do to cooperate. And I think the slide we had on screen earlier, the ecosystem, is a massive part of that, because money's not the only factor in this. There are many elements. So 12 I've counted in the latest chart, and I think that's a really useful map to see. Okay, where are the weaknesses? Where do we need to maybe add in additional support to make the package work? Because in other parts of the country, more social investment flows, social economy is better funded. So it's important for us to understand why is that and what can be done to change this. We're very keen to work with each of the parts of the ecosystem that are already there to collaborate, partner, signpost, and offer services where we can to complete the picture. But at the same time, what we have to do to shape the package of funding so that it works for social enterprises is to engage with social enterprises, talk to people, find out what's been tried before, what have the blockers been, and I think work together in partnership to try and overcome those barriers. There's not one single reason. There is, I'm sure there is education, there is tweaks to the product range maybe, there is outreach, business support is a really important element. But I'm sure we'll find out that there are others that need to be addressed in addition.
Super, thank you, Holger. That's really great. So finally, Preet, before we get ready for your questions, so we know that many social enterprises, charities and community businesses, quite frankly, find this world of social investment hard work, confusing. I mean, I've sat in your seat and remember, somebody striding up and down at the front talking about mezzanine debt, and I was thinking, I have no idea what that is. That sounds like an upstairs floor. So, and we also know that social entrepreneurs, their capacity is hugely constrained because, they're not meant to be finance experts. We're sort of jack of all trades. So what advice or support can good finance offer?
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, and also thank you for flagging it's my week 2 at Good Finance. So I'm enjoying diving in head first. And I think the landscape it can be really, really confusing and really, really daunting when you first kind of approach it. I think it's kind of full of a lot of jargon. It's a lot of processes which are unfamiliar for people. So it can be a real challenge when you're first approaching it. This is where Good Finance's role is really about demystifying this space. It's not about advocating one kind of funding option over another. It's really about giving tools, resources, and access to information for social enterprises and charities in the space so that they can figure out for themselves what are the kind of best funding options for them. And if, social investment is potentially the right path, then what do those steps kind of look like? I'm going to signpost a few good resources for people to go to. A first one would be a really good diagnostic tool on the Content Hub on Good Finance, which is called Is It Right For You? And that's it's free, it's online, and literally within the space of 2 to 3 minutes, you plug in just a few bits of key information, and it can give you a good kind of direction in terms of whether social investment is something that is relevant for your organisation or not. So a really good first kind of step in that process. If you're kind of a bit more informed and kind of want to, understand, okay, what are the investors and funders in this space? For me, there's an investment directory that's also on the Resources Hub, and that's a really, really great tool. You can filter by region, by the amount that you want to borrow, and it will give you a really good comprehensive list of what's in your region and what's really relevant for you, and it can connect you directly with those investors and funds. So that's a really, really great tool. And also, I think what we've had incredible feedback from is I think what's really valuable is that peer-to-peer type of resource. Sometimes it can feel really abstract and really like these, there's these concepts, these big ideas, and these processes, but what's it actually practically like tangibly for an organisation which is like mine? We have over 150 case studies of organisations, social enterprises, charities that have used social investment and how it has helped them. So you can go onto again that case study section of Good Finance. You can filter by region, by the purpose that could be similar to yours, and you can kind of read through the case studies. And again, that's a really, really valuable resource. I don't want to keep on listing all the resources, but my final kind of signpost is that if you want to develop your knowledge, there's a range of e-learning programs which are on the Good Finance Content Hub. And I think one which really works well for people in the beginning is Social Investment Unpicked. That is free. I'm always saying it's free because I just want to reiterate how accessible these resources are, and we need to be spreading the word about the amount of information which is accessible for people. But yeah, that's self-directed over 7 to 8 weeks. You can be, getting the foundations of, what are the types of social investment, again, kind of demystifying this space for you. And something that's really relevant for this region is that the West Midlands Combined Authority has funded bursaries, which can help organisations in the region, to support them to access this e-learning programme. So if you have any more information about that, just reach out and let us know.
Super, thank you very much. Right, now, time for questions. Always the one about money. I've got a few up my sleeve in case you're quiet. I'm not expecting you to be quiet. No, there we go. Straight, Charles, never quiet.
I personally blame you for all this problems that we're having, because the West Midlands used to have a really, really strong infrastructure. It was called Social Enterprise Midlands. Do you remember it? How many years ago since that's closed? Yeah. And that's the thing that's missing at the moment, I think, is that infrastructure that can be there to signpost and guide people towards the right information, advice, guidance, signposting and development. The problem we have with the social economy sector is there's 9,314 organisations. I've been doing a lot of research lately. And 70% of those organisations are small micro businesses. They don't have the capacity or mind space or even entrepreneurial thinking to take on repayable finance. So a lot of the work that we're doing around with the place-based investments, so the 9 social economy clusters that we have, and the work that we're doing with BSEC is about creating that new infrastructure of 9 organisations across the whole region, plus BSEC at a regional level, to be able to offer that information, advice, guidance and signposting. So we had to struggle with the signposting organisations and getting them to take up those bursaries to learn about social finance, because they either thought they didn't need it or they knew it all. That's not the case at all. So through that infrastructure, we can force organisations, we can compel them that if you want some money and you want a contract with us, you've got to be trained, you've got to be operating at a certain level. There's lots of things happening at a national government level at the moment, which means that that infrastructure becomes more and more important to have it there. So that's what we're trying to do, is to rebuild the infrastructure. It's not a question, it's just a statement, really.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. So that's good. You've kicked it all off now, which is all good. And I think that was a really important thing to say, that, social investment isn't going to solve everybody's problems. It really isn't. So let's go here first. Let's take both these questions, and then if you pass it.
Oh, hello. Nabila from Ways for Wellbeing UK. One of the things that I found really useful from a financial accountant that supported us to think about where do we want to go was a template, a cash flow and forecasting template. And I had to seek that out. I had to do a lot of searching and seeking out to figure out how can I get some sort of template that makes sense to me. And I don't know if there's any value in maybe having that available within the ecosystem that you're talking about, within those websites that you manage, because I think that's really helpful for organisations to have those kind of tools and templates available, and maybe even how-to guides.
I'll come back to that one. I know everybody's going to put their hands up, because, hang on a second, let's take this other question.
Hello, my name is Keith. 2 sides of a coin. It's complicated but simple at the same time. On one side of the coin, you have the idea, you got your social mission idea. It's not sustainable enough. You've got to focus more on the selling side. You go on the other side to generate interest, and it says it's too commercialised. Which is the right direction?
Great question. Great question, I like that one. Right, let's take the resources first. I know exactly where I can go with the answers. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to come along then. Go first, and then we'll pass along.
We've built one. It's been available for a long time. What we probably need to do is publicise it. So there was a shout out to Access, Mina. With Access funding, we built a business planning and cash flow model that was engaged with all the social investors pretty much. And that's available. We probably need to, we need to probably elevate that as availability. And I guess this goes to the point about good finance and the fact that there is lots there. And actually, we probably need to be talking more about that.
Super, thank you. Holger, did you want to go?
I think really important, goes back to something Matt was saying earlier, that if you contact a social investor, they will work with you. They won't say yes or no, and you can't come and apply a second time. So we have a template as well, and you're absolutely right. It's not good enough for you to have to come to us. I think there is an element of publicising it, but I really want to encourage anyone to pick up the phone and have a conversation, because our investment managers at Big Issue Invest, at Key Fund, and across the sector, this will be replicated. They can guide you through that. They can provide you with templates or point to other people's templates that may be more appropriate for you.
And just to say that, so that template is available on Good Finance that was co-created. So if you just want to have a look up front. But I also always feel like I'm like the woman from the BBC. I have to say, we've got some social investors, but there are other brands available. So there are around about 70 different social investors. They don't have high street presence. So you do need to have a look at who they are, decide who might be the best fit, because when you take investment, you're going to be in that relationship for a period of time. So actually, I normally always do this. Why should I break a habit of a lifetime? Let me quote a Midlands entrepreneur who said he had to kiss an awful lot of social investment frogs before he found his social investment prince. There we are. I'm going with that. I say it every time. Right. There was a question. Oh, sorry. Did you want to go back on resources, or do you want to answer the question about commercial?
Just very quickly. Well, I can do both. Very quickly. The Community Shares Unit, which is supported by Co-ops UK Locality and Plunkett, have a lot of resources, including like a pro forma spreadsheet, that if you're looking at community shares as part of your financing mix, you can try out different interest rates, different payback periods, different sums, everything else, and that we found that really helpful. I would say on the commercial thing, I think you've got to be both commercial and social, and I think the things that we've been most successful for us. So, for example, we've got a partnership with the Business Improvement District in Kings Heath, where we've taken on the management of the planters in the streets, 40-odd planters. They paid us this significant wodge of money to do that, which has been good for our income, but that's also allowed us to engage more people in the community in gardening. So I think you've got to find the things that do both.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
No, you go. No.
Sorry. Thank you. So I think that's right. I think it is both, whatever. But I also think what's right for you, because actually you're going to run this, and it needs to be what you're trying to achieve. Because it's not necessarily that you're wrong for the social investor; it's a wrong social investor, or it's a wrong investor full stop. Because actually, there's nothing wrong with commercial enterprise. And if you want to do that and deliver social impact, there are lots of good businesses that do that. Patagonia is a really good example of a Alpkit. Similarly, businesses that are commercial but have strong ethics built into their approach right through. We have peers that are just lend to SMEs. They'll be really interested that you have an impact, but they'll provide money that's much more focused on the area. So I would say be true to yourself. Don't bend. And this goes for everyone. Don't bend to the investor. They're not the right investor. Go and talk to someone else.
Yeah, my point is always there are loads of people kind of who've done something before, and you might find successful ones, unsuccessful ones, but there will be other people that have the same sort of passion as you, and there are other groups that can support you. And depending on how you set yourself up, you want to look for people for your board that have complementary skills or contacts, and your networking's really important. So again, I'm thinking of it more as you've got a really great idea, but you've got to get your business set up, because like we said earlier, grants run out, pilots run out. You've got to get your business set up, and there are people out there that will help. And when I was working with Sarah, we were trying to help people get themselves ready for contracting or taking tenders or doing tenders or just setting themselves up so their products worked. And you've got to think, I've got to sell this at some point, or sell the product or service at some point. Just try and take them both in tandem, because your enthusiasm will rub off on people that will help you.
Right, lovely, thank you. And we've talked about some of the organisations like Sweda and Access to Business and ISC that are in the room, and others. More questions? I was going to go back on that commercial one as well. Somebody once said to me early on, there's no social without the enterprise. So you've got to do the business. And I do remember sitting up the road in Edgbaston and answering the phone, and somebody said, "Oh, I've started a kick." I said, "Great." I sound like I'm going to tell a joke now, don't I? I'm not. I started a kick, and I said, "Great, what's it going to do?" They said, "I haven't decided yet." I didn't feel that was perhaps the right way round.
My name is Ramona, and I represent RUDA, the Romanian organization. I do have a question. I mean, we are quite a small organization, but we do have great ideas. And we are in the path of developing, I would say, using AI, a product that will help not only our community, but other communities as well. But we are afraid. First of all, we applied for grants, funding. You know, the 3% rate of being funded is quite small. But we are afraid to go and ask for support because, you know, we are thinking to whom? Who will trust our idea? I mean, I do represent a small and medium enterprise as well. And, you know, I'm getting that hat as well. And I'm thinking, how can I support, you know, charities, organizations, and so on? But I'm asking you guys, how do you encourage organizations like us to come to you and ask for help?
Thank you. Great question. That piece about fear and about risk, it came up this morning. You know, how are you brave enough to take that investment? Advice, tips? Anyone?
So it's really hard. I think I absolutely accept that. And it's very easy for us to say, just come and talk to us. We're lovely people. I think every social investor I know is in it because they want to genuinely do good things with enterprises and want that to really work. And I like everyone in social investment, but we are institutions and it's difficult. We're financial institutions as well. And for many people and many communities, actually, that's a major barrier. So I think part of it is about us being out, talking to people. I think hopefully you've had an insight that Holger and I aren't, you know, rapacious kind of horrible bankers. We're wanting to do good things. So you've seen some things, but I think we need to be out more. We need to be present. We need to be working with people. I talk about the 5 C's that stop social enterprises moving forward. The first one, I'll bore you with the other ones in private if you want, but the first one is confidence. And actually, I think it's massive. And part of that is actually trust. And how do we build those relationships? It's easy to say, but I think I would say, you know, it's worth a conversation. Even if we're not the right people, we're probably going to want to send you to somebody that is, because we want you to succeed.
Lovely, thank you. I was at Locality last week, and I was with another social investor with Social and Community Capital, and they were talking about actually a Birmingham-based organisation that they started having a conversation 3 years ago, and it's taken 3 years to get to the point of having that confidence. But I think one of the things that I hope we're starting to do is bust some of these myths. So, you know, you can only borrow social investment if you've got lots of employees. You can only borrow social investment if you're turning over £100,000 a year. You can only borrow social investment if it's going to be a personal guarantee. None of those things are true. So what we do have to do is try and work with you and all of the investors. Again, something that another peer told me is that you know, when they've borrowed money, it's been about much more than the money. It has been about the relationship, because it's much more like that. I don't actually remember this, even though I am old, but I don't remember that sort of going in to see your bank manager piece and having, you know, and you all knowing each other's names. But it is this piece that you are going to be working together over a long period of time. So finding the right investor is key. More questions? Are we right on time? Okay, one, we are. God, it was 55 when I looked 1 minute ago. Right, okay, so I'm going to just wrap up, but I am going to say I've never had an audience that have not asked this question, so I don't feel I should let you out of the room without addressing it, which is what makes a social investor social, and why does it cost what it does? Okay, so can't answer either of those in 1 minute, but I'm going to give it a really good go. So what makes a social investor social? Usually the forbearance bit. The bit is when it goes wrong. When things don't go according to plan. I have known people to give variations on lending, capital repayment holidays, go into contract negotiations, help you find new board members. It's all of that. Every social investor I know will not lend you the money if they think it's the wrong thing to do for your organisation. They do not want to see you go out of business because you stop creating impact, and that's what makes them different. And then why it costs what it costs. We've talked a little bit about, we were talking about the grant. It's sort of often talked about in terms of blended finance. There's lots of other words that go with this. Depends on where the investor's money comes from. We haven't had a secured lender here today, or sort of that's what they do. So one of the social banks like Charity Bank, they lend other charities and social enterprises deposits. So they're not going to be able to take the most risk. If you're borrowing it from a trust or foundation and it's philanthropic capital, then it'll be different, the level of risk and cost they can have. But I suppose the bit that I want to leave you on is that social investment can be another tool. It isn't down for us to tell you should definitely take it. It is definitely up for you to decide whether it's a tool that you can use. I was asked a lot of things, is it worth it, Mel? Is it worth it taking on investment? And I think that's a question that only you and your board can ask. But if essentially it will help you to create more impact, it's definitely worth considering. So if you have more questions, you can go and visit Good Finance. You can go and talk to any one of these lovely approachable panel and share their stories. And just a huge thank you. If you'd say thank you to the panel, that'd be great.